Namaskar, good evening to the viewers of Pandit Ravi Shankar Music Foundation. Once again, we are here to celebrate the 100 years of Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. But before we start the programs, we pay our homage to Pandit Jasraj ji, who left for the heavenly abode this week. May his soul rest in peace. But today is also, friend, the death anniversary of Bharat Ratna Ustad Bismillah Khan Sahab. We also pay homage to Ustad ji. Friends, today we start the show with a guest who is very near and dear to us also, and his son and disciple of great tabla maestro Pandit Shankar Ghosh, and also he is disciple of none other than Bharat Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. So on behalf of Pandit Ravi Shankar Music Foundation, I welcome world famous percussionist and a new A star Vikram Ghosh to our show.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Namaskar, Vikram da, how are you?
Very well. Good to see you. And you're doing wonderful work on the page.
Thank you, Vikram da. And to speak to Vikram da, senior disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, I welcome Gaurav Majumdar Dada. Namaskar, Gaurav Bhaiya.
Namaskar, Nabarun. My friend Vikram Ghosh, what a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely mutual.
It's always such fun to be in your company, and I look forward to today's interaction.
As I
Both
said,
are the disciples of Pandit ji, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and before you both start the session, take the blessings from your Chinnamma. She is live on the show.
Chinnamma Pranam.
Pranam to Chinnamma, and yes, Chinnamma did message just a few minutes before that. I'm ready, I'm watching, and my blessings. So let's start the
Over to
interaction. Thank you, Nabarun. Why don't we start our journey from Kolkata? It's a beautiful, amazing place with so much of energy, so much of music, art, literature. Let's go on a journey of tabla. How come Kolkata became such a hub for tabla that it's almost, or maybe a gharana today? Let's listen from you, Bikram, the journey of tabla from Kolkata.
Well, that's an interesting question, Gaurav, because you and I have discussed this in the past, over the years, and we have discussed much in the past, over the years. And it is the fact that we became friends also because of Guruji and Chinnamma, of course. But yes, it is one of those friendships which I treasure and which has lasted and stood the test of time, so to say. So yes, it is a heartwarming experience to be here live with you, with Nabarun Bhai also, and on this platform which is dedicated to Guruji. Having said that, my father, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, and a few of his contemporaries were the first ever professional tabla players from Bengal. So that is considered to be the first generation of professional tabla players. So of course there were great tabla players prior to that, but many of them had other professions. Some were lawyers, some were zamindars, some had different sources of income, and not necessarily from tabla. But when I hear from my father, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, what his journey was, and it was a real struggle to be a professional tabla player in that era, and to be a musician was a struggle, and to be a tabla player was very difficult in the Bengal of that period, because there were certain social taboos, certain social ideas that, if you were in the right pedestal in the hierarchy of society, then you needed to be maybe a doctor or an engineer, what have you, so many other professions. But they took that risk and became tabla players. Now, to understand how they were able to take that risk, one has to speak of another Guruji of mine, Gyan Babu, my father's Guru. And Gyan Babu was incredibly instrumental in making everything happen, because he, in his house in Dixon Lane, which is a famous heritage place, it's no longer there now, ironically, but the stories are still there. So in that period, even Guruji, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji used to go and stay in Dixon Lane, and my father and Pandit Kanai Dutt ji, Pandit Shyamal Bose, they were all students in Dixon Lane, and they were all studying under Gyan Babu. And Gyan Babu was learning from of course, from the Farrukhabad Doyens. He was also collecting material from a lot of people. And in those days, there are legendary stories that he would give a pashmina for a bowl. He would give a diamond ring for a bowl. And he collected material. And he collected enough material and studied the subject enough to create a certain school of thought with tabla, which is what prevailed eventually. That is what we know today as, if you want to call it the Calcutta Gharana, but the lineage is primarily Farrukhabad. So Gyan Babu was instrumental. Then Masjid Khan Sahab, Therkwa Khan Sahab, they used to all come and stay with him. So my father and his contemporaries were seeing these doyens in Dixon Lane, and they were getting inspired, of course, And there was a veritable hub, as you correctly said, created around Dixon Lane and Gyan Babu of tabla. And then, of course, the generations that he taught up until me, and even some younger than me, we learned from him, and we were influenced by his way of thinking, his huge body of knowledge. So that is how Kolkata became a hub, simply through Gyan Babu and his efforts, and the incredible amount of knowledge that he spread amongst a whole, maybe 3 or 4 generations of people. So that is how the story of Kolkata tabla playing kind of traveled the distance, so to say. But yeah, of course, there are other influences. There is the whole Banaras, kind of a trajectory coming through Kumarda's side and his father, Pandit Vishwanath Bose. And there were other trajectories, but Gyan Babu's was very, very influential and very, very big, because there were so many people around and influenced by his style of playing, his understanding of the subject, the variety of bowls that he also himself created. So that's kind of a short introduction to the history of Kolkata tabla. There's more, of course.
That's a beautiful, beautiful introduction. Very inspiring because I think a lot, we owe a lot to Gyan Babu for his generosity and
of course
spreading the knowledge freely, which was not so common that time.
Yes.
It would be kept very guarded and passed on to their immediate family members. But Gyan Babu, I think, made the biggest difference by sharing it with everybody who was talented and who was hardworking. And who
absolutely. He kind of democratized it. He made it a democratic system, where it was only passed down from father to son and that kind of thing. So he was giving away this material very, very generously, as you correctly said. He was doing that, and which is why his students, my father was giving unbelievably generously. He in fact printed 3 books and gave all the material that he had composed. Literally, you can buy that for a few hundred rupees.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Starting from such a beautiful note, 2020, it gives us mixed feelings. It's the birth centenary of our dear Guru, Bharat Ratna Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, a great landmark, a great year, but also this COVID-19 has pushed us back. And all of a sudden, I think we are all in a situation where we are trying to reinvent ourselves. Let's start with talking about this whole lockdown procedure and process, because we were supposed to go on tour starting from March. you and me and so many other disciples celebrating Guruji's centenary all over the world, starting from South Bank Center on 7th of April, 2020. And then all of a sudden this thing shows up and we are told to stop and halt. Take us on a journey. What did you go through? What was on your mind?
You know, it's kind of strange to talk about it with positivity, but that is the way I have experienced it throughout the lockdown. Because when, for me, when the outside shuts down, then the windows open inwards. So I concentrated on that, and I really feel that the lockdown has been, or the effective lockdown of the pandemic going on, has been something that has been really introspective for me, and has really helped my music and my understanding of life also way more, because the kind of lives life one leads, travel, this, that, so many responsibilities, that you're playing, you're teaching, you're recording, you're doing scores, this and that. In the middle of it all, when there is a quietening of the din from outside, then you, as an artist, it's a precious moment. It can be a precious moment for you. So if you turn it around inwards. And so that I did quite systematically. And so, yes, I did get to practice more, which is definitely, I feel that is a blessing, because I wanted to practice more. I also was reading more, was thinking more, was understanding more, because there was no social life. You're not going out, so you're at home. You get to bond with your family. You get to do all of that, all the things that you feel you should do, but you never do it because you're just going with the flow of life. And I think that has been very precious. And besides which, I've been very lucky because my studio is just next door. So I've gone throughout the studio and I've made music throughout the last 4.5 months. And I've done an album, I've done 2 film scores, I've done all kinds of things really. And it's been very creative, understanding technology, because now technology is much more of a reality than it was before the pandemic. So we have to understand how to reinvent the game, how to, this whole paradigm shift that has happened from the live space to the digital space. That's also a learning curve. So all of that has been very enriching for me. And I'm not really complaining individually that I have had to be at home, be in one place. But of course, what is really upsetting is the fact that, I mean, as a species, we've had to go through this. And so many people have passed on because of the pandemic. And that really bears down on you. That really makes you feel, oh my God, what is going on, and how does one combat this? So I guess we have to philosophize it on some level and understand what's being told to us, be it nature, be it what we're doing. Sometimes I have birds on my balcony, which never used to come before the pandemic. So there are 2 sides to the whole thing, Yeah. Of course, we see the death, we see the illness, we see the fear, and we are disturbed by it. But at the same time, I think there is important introspection to be done. So yeah, it's a really mixed bag, Gaurav, and you know that it's a mixed bag. I mean, how do you say that it is this and not that, and this is that and not this? So yes,
it's both.
I feel it's kind of strange that it happened at the 100th year of Guruji's, his birth centenary, because here we were all ready to go outward, and we were going to fly, and we were going to do these big shows, and Chinnama had organized it, and Anushka had organized it, and everybody had done their bit, and this was what was going to happen. But we were all forced to go inward now.
Yes.
And
the feeling I had, the feeling I had that we are all going to go and join Guruji and go on this big tour,
Yes, but I think it's also karmically it's important, because he was somebody who believed in sadhana, and how many conversations we had with him on that, and how the dignity of sadhana, of riyaz, and all that. And so to get to do that inward journey, for me that has been precious.
Brilliant. Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, your earliest memories.
Like the book says, the sun. Simply, I mean, he was, I remember him as a child. Of course, seeing, on occasion, I saw my father perform with him. On occasion, we used to go to meet him in Lalaji's house when he came to Kolkata. I remember 1982 when he had actually recommended my father's Music of the Drums as the closing act of the Asiad in 82. So I remember meeting him there. I remember wanting to go near him and touching his feet. And I remember getting a really bad knock on my nose by somebody's elbow because there were so many hundreds of people around. So that's one memory I have. So here is, look at the irony of things. I mean, look at how life pans out. So here I'm getting a knock on my nose just to try and go and touch his feet. And then who knew that I was going to spend such a huge, incredibly important part of my life sitting at his feet?
And that journey, how was that journey like, from getting a knock on your nose to knocking his door and the door opens and he's
Well,
tell us about that journey first, because we would like to know the Bikram Ghosh of those years, because I have seen both. I'm lucky.
You have seen it all. It's all happened right in front of your eyes, so you know it all. But I will give you a little bit of a precursor. I was preparing to meet him musically. This is something not many people know, but I was preparing to meet him, and in certain ways, I didn't even know that I was preparing. But look at the how life was panning out. So here I was, my father's son. My father was always one of the great people with the math of Tal. No, so I was trained in the math of Tal from very, very young age. And then I went to Pandit S. Shekharji, the great Mridangam Vidwan, who then taught me the Carnatic side of Tala for several years. And I still do learn from him. So this was happening with Tal and my understanding of the subject. On the other hand, I was going and practicing with Deepak Da from a very young age. And I somehow was developing an affinity with this style of playing while playing. Of course, I was hearing Guruji's records for forever, really. Huh? I loved the music, but you have to understand the music.
Correct.
If you want to enter that zone, if you want to play someday, then you have to understand. So I already was preparing to meet him through Deepak Da, through the talim I was getting. And then, off and on, there was a concert where Parthoda and Shubhendra played. I played with them. I think the year was 90, 91. I can't remember now. Very early for me, But then everything changed on the 14th of November, 1993. I was in Belgium, in Brussels, and I had gone to play with Pandit Vishwamohan Bhatt, with Tarunda, with Ronuda, and Ramesh Kaka, Pandit Ramesh Mishra ji. And there was a quartet, and I was supposed to play with them. And we were staying at Shri Prabhu Sen's house in Brussels. It was a big house, and I was in the attic because I was the youngest, and I was, you can stay in the attic. So I'm staying in the attic. And I remember Prabhu Kaka excitedly shouting from the stairway that all of you get ready, Robuda is coming today. He was called Robuda by his friends and contemporaries. So he's going to come and have dinner, and he wants to hear you all play. So we all immediately got our instruments out, started practicing. So he came, Chinnamma came, and I won't ever forget that evening for many reasons. So we played, and we all played. And then he went up to each and every person and said, "Wow, beta, well done," whatever. I was the only one he didn't say anything to. He said nothing. So I felt really dejected. I felt maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm something wrong. I felt very bad. So I have this very poignant memory of lying down in the attic at about 12 in the night and feeling horrible because here was this huge opportunity of playing for him, and I had somehow bungled it up probably, At past 12 at night, the landline, no cell phones those days, the landline rings and Prabhu Kaka shouting, Vikram, quickly come down. Prabhudas on the line for you. And I'll never forget what he said. He said to me on the phone, Beta, you probably thinking, I didn't say anything to you. But I've heard such good tabla after a long time. Will you play with me day after tomorrow? So I had to pinch myself 3-4 times, I was here. I had always thought someday touch his feet, get an autograph. Like that's like the goal. And this was like, but there was an interesting incident in 1991. I think it was 91 in Bombay. He had played with 3 great tabla players, Ustad Zakir Hussain, Pandit Swapan Chaudhary, Pandit Kumar Bose. And that concert, I had somehow got into the theater. I didn't have a ticket. I was standing in the wings, hiding so that I can listen, Somehow he was going to go on stage. He saw me and he said, Ki karo? I said, tabla baje. Amar sange baje, will you play with me someday? Like, I thought, I obviously took it as a joke and, one of those little, but then look at life and how it pans out. So yes, then I played with him and Chinnamma was there in front, and Chinnamma, I know you're watching this. And I remember there was a defining moment. So Guruji used to do, if he played this particular Tihai, he would always leave the sum out. So it used to go, da, ta, ne, da, ta, ne, da. And instead of doing da, ta, ne, da, ta, ne, da, ta, ne, da, he would always play it, da, ta, ne, da, ta, ne, da, ta, da, and leave it there. And the sum he would show with his foot. So I had studied him. I immediately stopped at the da, ta, ne, da, ta, ne, da, ta, because I knew he was going to do that. So I saw him look in the front row at Chinnamma, look at me for a tiny split second and look at Chinnamma and do this. He lifted his left or right eyebrow. And I knew I had done something right in that moment, And then the rest they say is history, Then next year I went to Dubai, one concert, and then I was touring and with some 40 odd concert for that year, 95, 96, 97, whole decade, and the biggest learning curve of my life, really.
Yes, and that learning curve is something we need to speak about today. We need to know about it. I remember there was a time you had a bout of illness. You were not well and you were in Delhi. And me and Nandita came to visit you in your guest house, I think in Greater Kailash or east of Kailash somewhere.
I just recovered from jaundice.
You had jaundice. And I think that point, there was something major going on within you, major rethinking, major reshuffle. And I think that whole, you tell us what it was, this exposure coming with Guruji. What all changed? What all, I mean, what did you think about it? Where was your thought process taking you?
Right. So I believe in destiny. I believe that destiny is not. It is not a. I believe it is a. It is a setting. Destiny is a setting. What you do in that setting is what you do. So there is free will. It's not like everything is. So if I look at the way my life panned out, and once I started playing with Guruji, every day was talim. And I say this not just musically. I say this on every front. From how to bow on stage, how to meet people, how to meet certain kinds of people. If you were meeting, and obviously you were meeting the biggest people with him, if you're meeting Philip Glass, how are you going to respond? How are you going to greet? If you were meeting somebody from the classical music field, everything was analyzed. Everything he was able to decode because he had decoded it himself. And luckily for me, because I had a good education and I was a thinking individual, he saw that I was grasping it. I was understanding what he was saying, because there is a milieu in the classical music world. There is a type. People see us classical musicians and they think that we are a type. If you met Guruji, he broke the type. So why did he break the type? Because here was an individual who was able to speak the classical music language very well. Namaskar ji, pranam ji, kaise hain aap, aur kaise chal raha hai, all of that is there. Kirom achin, bhalo achin, namaskar, all of that was there. At the same time, he was able to talk about baseball. So he was able to pun on words. I remember everybody talks about punning and, kind of using the language to mean something else. The best pun I ever heard came from him. So we were punning one day, and he said something brilliant. The pun was brilliant. I can't remember what it exactly was. So I said, my God, Guruji, you pun so amazingly. I can't think of so many words. He said, but that is why I'm a Pandit. He was so quick on the draw, quick. And this is the bandwidth was very, very wide.
Yeah.
He had an incredible bandwidth. There was nothing that the bandwidth did not catch. He was not an AM frequency. He was not an FM frequency. He was a frequency of the internet that caught everything.
Correct.
So this is where I started getting. Now see, all my life I was attracted to the persona. When I started traveling with him, sitting with him, talking to him, I started inevitably, like everybody else in the world who ever met him, you start getting attracted to the person. You start getting attracted to any word that comes out, the look that he, so I was soaking it in like a sponge, and I keep telling Chinnamma that I wish I was older, because if I was maybe 45 when I met him, maybe 40 when I met him, I was all of 26 years old. And and Chinnamma is the best person to talk about it, because at 26 you're a brat. So you don't get much, you're concentrating on just figuring your own way out, You're not like taking in all that you can. I was still a sponge, I was taking in, but I was not decoding it like I've decoded it now, much later. And now I miss him. I wish I could have this conversation with him today. I would be able to contribute something to that conversation. So he was amazing. He changed my entire perspective. I'll tell you another incident. And this incident is to do with food. So we were in Japan. The year was 1995. We were sitting at this very prestigious, those sunken, Japanese style dinners, and the food spread was some ambassador's dinner or something very high profile. And I was just touring for less than a year at that point, and I was very uncomfortable because this is too big for me, the whole thing, So I was this little Kolkata boy. So I was sitting next to him, and they served all the Japanese delicacies, and a lot of it was less cooked, raw. And then he saw that I was hesitating to eat. And he said something in my ears in Bangla. I'll say it in English, but it became a mantra for me. He said, Bikram, you've been a good Bangali boy all your life. So you had your bhat, mache jol and all of that. This is your chance to become a world citizen. How do you become a world citizen? Look at what he says after this. He said, if you accept another culture, then you become enriched. What is the biggest way you can accept another culture? By putting that culture's food into your own mouth. And the minute he said this, it was like one of those comic books where you have a bulb lighting, boing, it went. And I was like, my God, this is like, I've just learned the basic thing in life, This is what I want to do. The mantra. So immediately I started eating the food, and then eventually I became I love Japanese food. I can eat as fast as I can eat with my hands. I can eat with chopsticks, because he just inspired that. That whole line of thought in my brain was opened up. And these are just two little incidents. I mean, every day was like this. Sitting with him, talking about, what not. I will never forget going to watch Buena Vista Social Club with him. Just him and me. Chinnamma dropped us off and we were watching this film. The analysis of that film, because here was a phenomenal music composer who knew the craft of cinema. He had scored for some of the most iconic films ever. So when he is watching this film, you are sitting next to him and watching it, and the way he is analyzing the film and what the music is and how the music is meshing with the story and all of it, talim right there. So I mean, I have a huge gratitude to him, even for whatever film scoring I do, whatever little I'm able to achieve. I have a huge gratitude there, because there's a lot of influence. I mean, so many films that I've scored, people have said to me that, Onar style, kind of his style, and I do that. It comes naturally. I'm convinced this is the right way to do it. So I do it. And it's what he's done, films like Bosu Poribar, Kadamburi, right now Abhijatrik, all these films are inspired by Pandit Ravi Shankar's scoring. So yeah, his influence in my life is it is still Bangla bole Kromosho Prakasho. It is still it is unraveling itself, because I'm every day learning more and more. And as I said, I just wish he was around and I could talk to him.
Yes, we all do, but in our own way, we do meet him every day. We do sense him around. Yes. We do, and that is the amazing bit, that in so many ways he still makes us feel his presence around, which is
he does. No, I mean, the music that he the music paved the way for everything that is happening today. Mm-hmm. Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, the whole gamut of Indian classical music has been influenced by his music and his kind of thinking, and even the way that he took the music to uncharted territories. I'll give you another example. Fantastic example. Oh, I have so many, Gaurav.
I want to listen to all of them.
This is a really important one. Yeah. And this is why he was the ambassador for Indian music. The concert was in Taipei. And I'm sure Chinnamma remembers. In Taipei, so I'm thinking, I mean, in Taipei, what kind of audience, who's going to listen to, Puriya Kalyan or Sham Kalyan, So I have these questions in my head. As we are going towards the stage, we had one conversation in the green room, and then on the way down the corridor, he's telling me, so we will not start with the alap today. I said, no alap. I said, no. So he said, we'll do a small 10-minute rupak, and we will play fast. So just go with me. Okay. So we go on stage, and he says, we are starting with so-and-so rag, so-and-so, and like that. 10 minutes, Gaurav, it was electrifying. It was like, dhar, like that, something like tremendous energy and everything. And then, bam, finished. 15,000 people. It was a gymnasium in Taipei. 15,000 people in Taipei. So, the popularity, I'm putting that aside for the time being. But now look. So, everybody is clapping, standing ovation. Wahi pe ho gaya. Now, he takes the mic. He said, so you like our music? So they're all shouting, yes, yes, yes. Now, so you believe me? Yes, yes, sir. Will you listen to me? What an audience. It's like a teacher talking to students. So they said, yes. Shut your eyes. 15,000 people, shut your eyes. I'm like, what is this? What's going on here? 15,000 people shut their eyes. He played a 12 to 15 minute alap. After all the Dhuandhar playing, after the alap, there was an equivalent response. Like that happened after the whole interactive part, And then he said, so now you see our music is just as spiritual as it is exciting. So this is how he popularized Indian music. This is how he showed them the gamut, the power that it had over people. So he would go from country to country doing that. I mean, what else can be? Who else can be an ambassador for your country, not just for Indian music? I mean, that's what he did. So I'm proof of that.
Yes. So beautifully. I mean, he takes you to the depths and he takes you to the heights of this music, which has both, which has such a
excitement, there's internalization, the spirituality, all of it was, and he created that graph in every concert. He would not just leave it in one single energy frequency. He would take it up, he would drop it, he would plateau it. It was like an orchestra happening in the moment.
Yes.
Chinma's asking
Yes.
him if he remembers the week.
And this orchestra, when he started his career as a sitar player,
I just heard that. I just heard that.
Let's hold it for a moment.
Chinama, you don't want me to be serious about something. Okay.
Let's hold it for a moment. I'm going to come to that. So in 1939, whole performance, the material and how you perform Indian music was so very different when he started.
Of course.
So imagine that journey from scratch. He must have put his effort and his mind and his talim and his hard work to create all this, what you're talking about.
I think he was, I think he was somebody who was able to decode things from a very young age. He was decoding life like nobody else from a very young age. He, of course, had a myriad life. I mean, crazy life, all that information he was decoding as well. And the skill set that he had, the manifold skill set, being able to talk the way he could, the way he learned, educated himself on the go, the way he was able to speak so many languages, the way he was able to charm people. You had to be charming to get your message across. People will listen to you when they first like your smile. I mean, that's the way life is, So they see the smile, they see this person, they feel an affinity, and then they have ears for the person. And then what he says makes so much sense. So these are all the things that he was able to imbibe as he went along. And what he was then bringing to the classical music stage with all that information, traveling with Uday Shankar ji, traveling as a child, seeing how productions were done, all of that. So he had a 360-degree vision. So what he was doing in All India Radio, what he was doing with his early days of orchestration, all of it was from that big vision that he had already been exposed to. And he understood that this can be done, and it can be done to that level. So he was not only experimenting with the format of performance, which he was doing with his own music, he was also experimenting with what Indian instruments were capable of doing.
Yes.
So Vrindavadan. So how do you create a piece of music, an ensemble, where you have so many instruments playing, and yet they are not consistently playing together, like was most of the time the order of the day was that everybody played together. Here he was doing trade-offs. So the percussion section was playing something, throwing it at the sitar section picked it up, threw it at the vocal section. So all this was going on as well. And at the same time, he's doing a score like a Pather Pachari. So I really feel that, he was blessed, of course. He was blessed. And we were also all blessed because he touched us and we understood what was going on. So today, I really feel, I keep telling Chinama this, I really miss his presence because when he was around, there was a buzz.
Festival.
Yeah, it is a buzz. And that buzz, I miss that buzz. I don't feel that buzz much. So I find it in my own way through different things. But of course, I miss that buzz.
So in all this buzz and all this festival and everything, where does a wig come in?
Where there's a wig, there's a way.
Where there is a way, there is a wig, there is a way. And
So the wig
wherever
is-
there is a wall, Chinnamma says, wherever there is a wall, there is a hole. So
So
I better read all the messages while you're telling this story, because Chinnamma has put a lot of messages. So let me just.
you do that while I tell the wiggy story. Well, Chinnamma being Chinnamma and Guruji being Guruji, they were for me completely okay. So me being naughty or Tanmoy being naughty or you being naughty is something we understand. We we're just kind of freshers, But Chinnamma being that naughty and Guruji being that naughty was something you don't bargain for. And you come to the house and gradually realize, my God, they can be loonier than us, which is crazy. And we were loony enough, anyways. So one
She's
day,
saying you were a big. She's saying Chinnamma is saying you were a big brat.
I was, and I really I wonder how she jailoed me, how she's put up with all of it, and Guruji too. But yes, so Chinnamma, for all those who are viewing this program, there is a brilliant photograph of me in a woman's wig, and I didn't have a beard those days, so it was easier to make me look like a woman. And Chinnamma had done that whole thing, and with me and Tanmoy, and she took photos. And those days, no cell phones, so there was a camera came out, and that whole thing happened. And that photograph she sent me recently again, and my wife Jaya hadn't seen it, and my family hadn't seen it. They were like, "Oh my God, are you even serious? Is this what was going on?" So you see, this was what was going on. Had this incredible graph. Here, all this depth of learning and all this. My God, you are becoming this refined human being. And on the other hand, there is this completely slapstick, Charlie Chaplin-esque whole thing going on, which was, I mean, that was brilliant, man. It was brilliant stuff.
Like a Kader Khan Shakti Kapoor movie.
Meeting Satyajit Ray.
Meeting. Chinnamma is saying, Anushka is watching, and she's saying you have lost weight.
Yes, wait and watch. More.
And Chinnamma is correcting you. She's saying it's the right eyebrow, not the left.
Yeah.
Left.
Actually, I used to copy it with Tanmoy. I used to come back and copy it. I could never get my right eyebrow going, so I used to do this, my left one. So I mistakenly thought it's my left. But yeah, Anushka, I've lost weight, and I kind of hit the treadmill every day and I eat less. You have to keep fit.
No rice and no Bengali fish and.
No, Bengali fish is all there. It's just less on the carbs. I eat black rice now if I want to eat rice. But yeah, just a little bit of carb reduction and a little bit of working out. I do some treadmill, a little bit of weights. That's it. I need to get some muscle. That's.
I wish you luck. So going back.
Thank you. You've always been a huge support.
Thank you. Going back to the moment when you decided to tie the ganga. What was it? What made you decide, and what was the situation like? What told you that I want to do this?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you are. It's a little early to say living proof, but you are proof of it. Sorry, I couldn't. Some things you just can't resist,
That's okay. We'll edit it later.
Yeah, after everybody's seen it all. Huh? So we, because you were there that day, and we actually played.
After your
ceremony, Tilak Sham, and I played with you and all of that. But yes, so there was a little history to that moment. I was, of course, I was a Shishya from day one and from before. So that is there. And I was learning many things from him through practice, of course, in the concerts, but also through practice, because the practice was very, very regular. And in the practice sessions, a lot used to happen, which was talim for me. So how to play this here, calculations, he would discuss calculations. And if I wouldn't get it right, he would say, how are you thinking about it? And he would say, no, this starts from the quarter beat. And no, that was going on for years. So Chinnamma actually suggested graciously that he ties the ganda on me, on my hand. And now I had a tiny dilemma. And this dilemma was because I had already had a ganda bandhan from my father and also from Gyan Babu. And I was trying to understand how to, get this done. And so I just thought the best thing to do is let me talk to my father and tell him that how does he feel about it. What Baba said that day was not just a clincher, but it gave me a sense of how much bhakti towards Guruji even my father had. So the minute I said to him, Baba, this is what, they're saying, and this is, what do you feel about this? The first thing, and right then and there he said, oh, if Robuda had asked me, had told me to become his shishya, I would do it. Who are you? Because we are all indebted to him. So it is your honor, and it is my honor also. So do not have anything in your head. Go and just do this, because this is a natural outcome of what has been going on in your life.
Going on.
And I was just overjoyed, because here's something I wanted to do. I had a little bit of thing in my heart. How is my father going to react? And this is what he says. He says that because Guruji is like a guru to him as well. So in that, it is the natural outcome. So that was a beautiful moment, I think, for me. And I've told Chinnamma that, and Chinnamma has told me, she also felt touched by what Baba had said. And that's how he felt. That's how Baba felt about him. Everybody felt that way about him. I mean, seriously,
Everybody,
who didn't?
yes.
And
And
he
it
was
was
a guru
beautiful,
to everybody in every which way.
Yeah. And it was a
It was a
beautiful,
wonderful evening. We played, I remember you and I played, and yes, we have a photograph. Alan gave me that photograph later on, a beautiful black and white photograph. And everybody was there, Shubhendra, you, Anushka, so many people were there.
Vishubhai was there.
Yes, of course.
So
Years back, that was 2000. 99 or 2000, I think.
20 years.
20 years back.
I think even before that, because year 2000, Guruji already moved to Chanakyapuri. This was in Lodi.
It was 99 or 2000, one of those 2 years.
So it must be early 2000 or 99. And
I think it was 2000, January, that kind of
because
time.
Guruji was still in
winter.
Lodi Estate.
Yes, he was.
I remember with all those white chadar and gadda and everything.
Oh, yeah.
It
Totally.
beautiful.
Totally. Amazing memories.
Amazing memory. And we do meet. I think once everything is over, the cloud is gone, we meet and we celebrate his birthday. And we are waiting.
Yeah.
We are all waiting. And
Yeah, I think what was done, the first thing that Anushka had actually done, the Sandhya Rag, I think it was a great idea. And that really reached out to people. And a lot of people did try to do similar things. The whole bunch of stuff came after that, but that was the best, and naturally so.
then this book, which is so apt and so timely.
Ooh.
What a
job Oliver has done. A friend of
Oliver.
mine just called up yesterday and said that, my God, and the candidness,
Yes.
also in the book, and the honesty with which, this is something really, I think, is a big lesson that how do you this information is a treasure for all of us. We need to know, because we're constantly not just negotiating music, we're negotiating life, and then interpreting life into music.
Yes.
Was there a question? Somebody said something?
Yes. Well, that somebody is our Mother Superior. So,
Ma.
no, but she's saying that's so true. We just said that it was such a special. Chinnamma is saying it was a very emotional day. that
It was.
day of the ceremony. And
Hmm.
Chinnamma, after the ceremony, she played the tabla trying to imitate you. That also I remember.
She.
There is always that balance with Chinnamma. All of a sudden, there'll be a serious moment going on, something very serious, and all of a sudden, you see Chinnamma cracking up. She's
Yeah, and the sheer volume of the laughter.
at the sheer
Anushka
volume.
as well. Anushka and Chinnamma laughing together. The volume of it
And
was,
we would always,
was more than the volume of my tabla, Chinnamma.
and we would
She
always
said, "How's your tabla volume going up?"
correct. And we would always look at Guruji to gauge, should we laugh or should we laugh loud or should we just,
Oh my God!
oh, those were the moments, wonderful moments.
Fabulous. I mean, it was a roller coaster, really. I mean, in every which way, because so many emotions, so many, me and Dhanmoy were getting caught all the time, doing all kinds of things, and it was a regular thing. And I don't know how many times we apologized, and it was like a habit. Every third day, second day, we were apologizing, touching his feet and Chinnamma's feet, and then he was forgiving, and then again we were doing the same thing.
And I think many times you would say sorry without knowing what the fault was.
Yeah. It was the kind of the screensaver.
हाँ, चलो खत्म हो जाएगा ये।
मम्मा
There is one more here,
चिन्नम्मा का पढ़ना है।
and you can't turn it down.
The volume,
Yeah.
volume.
So yes. So I mean, Chinnamma did bring in a different dimension to the whole life of Guruji.
डिस्टर्ब भी
And,
करते हो बेटा।
Oh, without a shred of doubt, because she really looked after him. Did I just?
no, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
There you are. I got it. Okay, so yeah, she did. She saw to it that he was fit.
Yeah.
That he was happy. He was fit. He was able to do his great life work till the last day, which is, an incredible achievement. I mean, at that age, to play a concert just a month or two before. And Chinnamma saw to that. And she created a happiness zone. And we were all very lucky to be a part of that. And there was a lot of fun and laughter. Of course, Chinnamma was hugely responsible for it. And for all her strictness, she was unbelievably forgiving, because what Tanmoy and I were such bad boys that we really didn't. I don't know how much of forgiving we deserved at times, but she was able to do that. But yeah, so totally love you, Chinnamma. Respect, love, pranam, all of it.
Yes, and we continue as a family, as a
Yes, we do.
And
we have to continue his life work. I mean, I feel, like I have to do my father's life work, I have to do his life work also. I feel it in a similar vein, that this is something that I need to do. And really, I think, we are going to bounce back with a vengeance once the pandemic is over, and we'll see to it that, everything is done right. And yeah, there's so much to be done.
we'll definitely do that. Vikram, one last question.
Yep.
11th December 2012 in San Diego, and 12th of December in India. When did you get the news and where were you?
I got the news in India. I was in Kolkata in my house. And yes, I heard, I knew it was going to happen one of these days at that point. But it did. And yeah, I have to confess that I dreamt about him almost every night or every other night for a year. And it was to the point where I really started feeling I have to decode this. What is it? And there was I was not playing regularly with him for a period, quite a long period, up until 2012. If you look at it, there was a long period. And yet the impact of it was something that for a year I was dreaming about him. So I still do. I have a very, very I don't know what kind of an affinity it is, but it's some janam ka something is there, which I feel, and I feel responsible in a sense, for what I don't know, but I feel. So it's difficult to explain it, but I definitely I definitely feel his music. I understand more and more what he was doing. I understand his life, and I resonate with it in a very inexplicable way. And I've had junctures in my own life where I've thought, like when you said, in this 1998, when that was a setback year for me in many ways, on a personal front, on a professionally, all kinds of things. It was one of those things, and then it affects your body. That's when you're going through things, it affects your body. There is an impact, and that was it for me in '98. So I got jaundice and many more things that happened physically, really. And that was a turning point. And for me, it was a thinking area that, what is this? What do I want to do with life? And I did almost always, because I knew his life and what he had gone through and what the chapters were. And I did constantly take from that and understand that, okay, well, this is something that happens. And if he deals with something and he's where he is, well, I should be able to do something with it as well, with any kind of negative that happens to you. So I think that was inspiration. Even then, he was inspiration. So yes, continues to be. And Janama also. I mean, I in fact, even I get a little, a little jittery when I don't talk to her for some days. I call her, what, Janama? What? No call, nothing. So it's the way it is.
See, that's the beauty, that we can speak to her like that.
Of course, totally.
Instead of thinking that if we speak to her like that, she'll be upset and she says, okay, why don't you call, or whatever going on. That it's beautiful that we can express. So we are missing you. Why are you not calling us? Why are you not speaking to us? There's no message? What's going on? And that's, I think, a big thing what Guruji was about.
No agenda.
No agenda.
This is the most beautiful thing about Chinnamma. It's just pure love, fun and love. So this is something which, I think that makes you, she is a mother to me.
I remember that's it. when you said no agenda, it brings me back to the New Year when Chinnamma flew to Calcutta. You remember?
Of course. Just that's not too far
no
back
agenda
at all.
whatsoever. And then you called up. He says, "Let's go and play for her."
Yeah, I called up and we both sat in her green room and played for her. Live music, Guruji's Gat.
Yes, on the floor at her feet, and also that impromptu lunch at your place, and everything so unplanned, yet it was all so warm and so personal, so nice.
Well, that's the way she is.
That's what Chinnamma is. Yes.
I think as time goes, you realize more and more her worth.
Yes, it's definitely. It's been a pleasure as always, Vikram.
It's my honor. It's my honor to be on this platform, to be talking where Chinnamma is there, and with you. You've been a brother to me. I mean, we've had so many experiences together. We've had so many memories. We continue to have, conversations which are mean a lot to me. So yeah, love you, man.
Same here. Thank you very much. Love you too. And Chinnamma sends her love. Her last message.
Thank you, Chinnamma. Pranam.
And thank you very much. And I'll see you soon. Speak to you soon. And
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Pranam to Guruji. Thank you.
Thank you. Nabarun, call him back, Guruji's nephew, who's doing this wonderful work with Pandit Ravi Shankar Music Foundation. And over to you, Nabarun. Thank you.
Vikramda has left. I have the show. He must be in some other preoccupations also. Okay. Thanks, Vikramda, for coming to the show and sharing the memories of none other than Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. Tomorrow, we will meet at 6 p.m. to the viewers of Pandit Ravi Shankar Music Foundation. The announcement that tomorrow our show starts at 6 p.m. in the evening. Till then, good night and be safe. Thank you, Gauravda, for being with us.
Thank you, Navarun. You take care. All the best. See you tomorrow. Bye.